When I first walked into the library that Tuesday evening, I wasn't expecting my life to take a sharp turn. My name's Charlotte, I'm 21, and I was just trying to survive junior year. Statistics had been wrecking my GPA, so when our professor announced that a weekly study group would be organized for anyone struggling, I jumped on it. I figured I'd sit quietly, maybe absorb some formulas, and leave unnoticed. But that night changed everything. The library's back corner had been reserved for us. A group of about 10 students gathered around a long table. Most of them looked as lost as I felt, but one guy immediately stood out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm, almost teacher-like presence. His name was Malcolm, and apparently, he'd been chosen as the group's unofficial tutor. Malcolm wasn't just smart, he was patient. He explained concepts without making anyone feel stupid. I remember watching the way his hands moved as he sketched graphs on scrap paper, and for the first time all semester, the material started to click. But I wasn't the only one watching him. Halfway through the session, another student walked in late, a girl named Rachel. She had the kind of energy that filled the room instantly, all long hair and bright laughter. She slid into the seat across from Malcolm and leaned forward like she already knew him. "Sorry I'm late," she said, brushing her hand lightly against his arm as if they were old friends. His smile in response was polite, maybe a little guarded, but I noticed how easily she pulled him into conversation. I tried to focus on my notes, but it was impossible not to notice. By the end of the session, Rachel had practically monopolized Malcolm's attention, though he still took time to check in with the rest of us. When he came over to my side of the table and asked if I was following along, his voice was low, gentle. I nodded, though my heart was racing. Walking out of the library that night, I overheard Rachel inviting Malcolm to grab coffee. He hesitated but eventually agreed. I told myself it meant nothing. After all, I was here to study, not to crush on the smartest guy in class. But over the next few weeks, the dynamic shifted. The group kept meeting, and while Malcolm remained kind and helpful to everyone, there was an undeniable tension growing between the three of us, Malcolm, Rachel, and me. Rachel became bolder with her interest. She started saving the seat beside Malcolm, cracking jokes only he seemed to laugh at, even casually touching his hand when she asked for help. And while he never openly encouraged her, he didn't exactly shut it down either. I tried not to care, but one night after study group, Malcolm offered to walk me home. It was late, and the campus path was dimly lit. We talked the whole way about everything but statistics, books, movies, even our families. When he said goodnight, there was a softness in his eyes that made it hard for me to breathe. That was the night I realized I wasn't imagining it. Something was building between us. And if Rachel noticed, she wasn't about to back down. The following week, our study group faced its first real test, a surprise quiz the professor dropped on us after class. Everyone groaned, but when the results came back, I had scored one of the highest in the group. Malcolm clapped me on the shoulder, his smile wide and proud. "Told you, you've got this," he said. I caught Rachel's expression out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of irritation she masked with a laugh. She congratulated me, of course, but her voice was tight. From that day on, the air between us felt charged, like we were silently competing for more than just better grades. The strange part? Malcolm seemed oblivious to it. Or maybe he wasn't. Because a week later, everything got complicated. During one of our group sessions, Rachel casually mentioned she and Malcolm had gone to dinner over the weekend. She said it lightly, almost like a joke, but her eyes flicked toward me as she spoke. My stomach dropped. Malcolm didn't deny it. He just shifted uncomfortably, giving her a look I couldn't quite read. And that's when I knew, this wasn't just a study group anymore. It was the beginning of something messy, something that would test loyalties, friendships, and maybe even hearts. And I was already in too deep to walk away. After Rachel casually revealed her weekend dinner with Malcolm, the energy in our study group shifted. It wasn't loud or obvious, it was subtle, like an undercurrent tugging at me whenever she was around. Every time she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, or leaned in too close under the pretense of needing help, I felt it. And I hated that I cared. Malcolm, for his part, remained the same, steady, calm, unfailingly helpful. But I started noticing small details that made me wonder if he was as neutral as he appeared. When Rachel spoke, he'd smile politely. When I asked a question, he'd pause, look me directly in the eyes, and explain until I understood. Once, when I dropped my pen, he picked it up before I could, brushing my hand with his. It was brief, but I felt the spark. Still, Rachel wasn't going to make this easy. One evening, halfway through our session, she announced she had an amazing idea. We should all meet outside the library for once. Maybe grab pizza, have a relaxed group night. Everyone agreed, though I noticed she kept glancing at Malcolm, waiting for his approval. He gave a small nod, and that was that. On Friday, we gathered at a local pizzeria near campus. The group vibe was different without textbooks and laptops between us. People were laughing, telling stories, and for a while, it felt almost normal. Until Rachel slid into the booth right beside Malcolm, pressing against him as though they were already a couple. I tried not to stare, but then Malcolm's gaze found mine across the table. For a second, the whole room seemed to fade. It wasn't flirty, exactly, more like he was checking in, like he wanted me to know he noticed me too. My chest tightened, and I had to look away. Later that night, when the group thinned out, I found myself outside waiting for my ride. Rachel had gone home early, leaving Malcolm and me standing under the glow of a street lamp. "You okay?" he asked, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Yeah. Just tired," I said, though it wasn't the truth. He studied me for a moment, then said quietly, "You did great tonight. You seem more confident lately." The words warmed me, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. "Rachel, had fun tonight. Malcolm's so sweet, right? Don't you think he's perfect boyfriend material?" Winky face. I froze, staring at the message. Was she testing me? Or trying to mark her territory? Either way, I didn't reply. But Malcolm must have seen something in my face, because he tilted his head. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just my roommate." We parted ways after that, but the text gnawed at me all weekend. The next study session was even more tense. Rachel was unusually touchy with Malcolm, laughing at things that weren't funny, scribbling jokes in the margins of his notebook. At one point she leaned over, whispering something that made him chuckle softly. My stomach twisted. Then something unexpected happened. As the group was packing up, Malcolm stopped me at the door. "Hey, Charlotte. You free this weekend? I was thinking maybe we could go over some material one-on-one. You've been improving a lot, but I think you could ace the next test if we spend a little extra time." My heart skipped. A private study session? Was this just academic, or something more? I nodded quickly, maybe too quickly. "Yeah. Definitely." He smiled, and I swear it lingered longer than usual. But I wasn't naive. I knew Rachel wouldn't like it if she found out. And sure enough, the very next day, she cornered me after class. "So," she said casually, twirling her pen, "I heard Malcolm asked you to study with him. That's cute." There was an edge in her voice, though her smile stayed fixed. "Yeah," I replied carefully. "Just to review for the test." Her eyes narrowed, just for a second. "Of course. That's what I thought. He's just being nice, he's like that with everyone." I wanted to argue, to point out that he hadn't asked anyone else for a private session. But I bit my tongue. Saturday came, and I met Malcolm at a small cafe near campus. We spent the first hour buried in notes, but gradually, the conversation shifted. We talked about music, about our plans after college, even about childhood memories. At one point, he asked what I wanted to do with my life, and when I answered, he said, "I can see that for you. You're determined, even when you don't realize it." It was the kind of encouragement I didn't even know I needed. When we finally packed up, he walked me to my car. The air was cool, crisp with autumn. I opened the door, and for a moment, we just stood there. Too close. Too quiet. Then he stepped back, clearing his throat. "Good luck on the test, Charlotte. You'll do great." I drove home with my heart pounding, replaying every second. But I wasn't the only one who wanted answers. That night, Rachel called me. Not texted, called. "Hey," she said sweetly. "So, how was your little study date with Malcolm?" Her tone made it clear, this wasn't just about academics anymore. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't just part of a study group. I was in the middle of a battle I never signed up for. Rachel's late-night call replayed in my head for days. The way she'd stretched out the word date, the way her laugh carried a hint of warning, it was clear she wanted me to know that she considered Malcolm hers. But here's the thing, Malcolm never said that. He never acted like he belonged to anyone. If anything, the way he looked at me during our one-on-one session made me think the opposite. Still, the study group was supposed to be about statistics, not drama. I told myself I'd keep it professional. But reality had other plans. The night before our big test, we met at the library for a final review. Everyone was stressed, heads down, except Rachel. She breezed in late, her hair perfectly styled, wearing a perfume that lingered long after she sat down. She plopped into the chair next to Malcolm, flashing him a smile. "I brought snacks," she announced, pulling out cookies she'd baked. She offered them around, but when Malcolm reached for one, she playfully smacked his hand. "Not until you solve problem number 7 for me." The group laughed. I didn't. He humored her, of course, scribbling out the equation while she leaned so close I could barely see the page between them. I clenched my pencil until the eraser snapped off. But then, halfway through the session, Malcolm did something unexpected. He shifted his chair slightly, away from Rachel, and leaned toward me instead. "Charlotte, can you walk me through problem 10? I think you've got a good handle on it." My cheeks warmed. He wanted me to explain? In front of everyone? I hesitated, but he nodded encouragingly. So I took a breath and started talking through the steps. My voice shook at first, but as I went on, I grew steadier. When I finished, Malcolm grinned. "Perfect," he said. "Exactly right." The approval in his voice lit me up inside. Rachel's smile, however, faltered. She recovered quickly, but I saw it, the flash of irritation, the calculation in her eyes. After the session, as people packed up, Malcolm walked with me toward the exit. Rachel trailed behind, but before she could catch up, he lowered his voice. "You really did great tonight. Honestly, you don't even need me anymore." I laughed nervously. "Don't say that. You've been the reason I understand any of this." He shrugged. "Maybe. But you're doing the work. That's what matters." Then Rachel's voice cut through the air. "Malcolm," she called, hurrying up. "Don't forget, you promised to help me with flashcards tonight." His expression flickered, surprise, maybe even regret, but he nodded. "Right. I'll catch up with you later, Charlotte." Later. The word lingered in my head. The next day, the test came and went. I walked out feeling more confident than I had all semester. And when the results came back the following week, I nearly cried. I'd scored the highest grade in the class. Higher than Rachel. Malcolm congratulated me in front of everyone, his smile wide and proud. Rachel clapped too, but her jaw was tight. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "Congrats," she said flatly. Guess all that extra tutoring paid off. There was no mistaking her tone. This wasn't about grades anymore. This was about him. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because the very next day, Malcolm made a move that complicated everything. It was raining, and I'd forgotten my umbrella. As I rushed across campus, soaked and shivering, a car pulled up beside me. Malcolm leaned out the window. "Need a ride?" I hesitated, then slid in. The heater blasted warmth, and the smell of his cologne filled the car. "Thanks," I muttered, brushing wet hair from my face. He chuckled softly. "You always try to do everything alone, don't you?" I looked at him, confused. "You don't have to," he added, eyes flicking toward me before focusing back on the road. My heart raced. Was this his way of telling me something more? Or was I just reading too much into it? He dropped me off at my apartment, and before I could thank him, he said, "Hey, are you free this weekend? There's this campus event, music, food trucks, that kind of thing. Thought you might want to go." I blinked. "Like, together?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah. Together." I agreed before I could overthink it. But that night, my phone lit up again. A new message from Rachel. "Rachel, heard you're going to the festival with Malcolm. Careful, Charlotte. He's not who you think he is." My blood ran cold. What did she mean? The next day at study group, Rachel acted normal, too normal. But every time she looked at me, I felt the weight of her warning. Not who you think he is. What did she know? And why did I suddenly feel like this love triangle wasn't just about jealousy, but about secrets? The morning of the festival, I couldn't stop replaying Rachel's text in my head. He's not who you think he is. What did she mean? Was it just jealousy, or was there something real behind her words? I almost canceled on Malcolm. Almost. But when he texted me a cheerful, "See you at 3?" my stomach flipped, and I found myself saying yes. The festival was bustling with music and food stalls, the scent of fried dough thick in the air. Malcolm greeted me with a smile that made it hard to breathe. For a while, everything felt easy. We wandered between booths, sampled ridiculous amounts of snacks, and even joined a group dancing in the middle of the square. I hadn't laughed that much in months. But then I noticed her. Rachel. Standing by the lemonade stand, arms crossed, eyes locked on us. My stomach dropped. Of course she'd show up. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't even pretending. Her glare was sharp, directed right at me. Malcolm noticed her too. His jaw tightened, and he muttered, "Of course she's here." "You too," I hesitated. "Are you?" "No," he said firmly, cutting me off. "We're not. Whatever she thinks, whatever she's saying to you, don't believe it." The intensity in his voice both reassured and unsettled me. Why did he sound almost angry? Later, as we sat on the grass sharing fries, I asked, "What's the deal with Rachel? She acts like you two are." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's been persistent. We hung out a couple times at the start of the semester, but it never went anywhere." I told her that. But I think she heard what she wanted instead. "So you're not?" "Charlotte," he interrupted softly, meeting my eyes. "I'm not with Rachel. I like spending time with you." The world seemed to stop for a moment. His words were simple, but my chest felt like it might burst. And yet, Rachel's warning gnawed at me. When I got home that night, I found another text from her. "Rachel, he'll say anything. Don't fall for it. He used to tell me the same things." I stared at the screen, my mind spinning. If Malcolm really had told her similar things, then maybe she wasn't entirely delusional. Maybe there was truth buried under her bitterness. At the next study session, I caught Rachel watching me every time Malcolm leaned over to explain something. When he praised me for solving a difficult problem, her pen nearly snapped in half. Finally, as the group packed up, she cornered me near the door. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice sharp but low enough so no one else would hear. I didn't want to, but something in her eyes, desperate, almost frantic, made me nod. We stepped into the hallway. "You think he likes you," she said flatly. "You think you're different. But you're not." He said the same things to me. Walked me home. Texted me late at night. Made me believe I mattered. And then he just stopped. Moved on. Do you want to be next? Her words hit like a punch. Before I could respond, Malcolm appeared in the doorway. Everything okay out here? Rachel's eyes burned into mine. Tell her, she demanded. Tell her what you told me. Malcolm's expression hardened. Rachel, enough. I've been clear with you. Stop twisting things. She laughed bitterly. Clear? Is that what you call it? You never told me it was over. You just slipped away. And now you're doing the same thing again. The tension was suffocating. I glanced between them, my heart pounding. Who was telling the truth? Malcolm ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. Charlotte, don't let her drag you into this. I never led her on. She's upset because I didn't feel the same way. That's all. Rachel shook her head, her voice breaking. He'll hurt you too. You'll see. She stormed off, leaving me frozen in place. Malcolm stepped closer, his voice softer. Don't listen to her. I meant what I said at the festival. I like you. Only you. His eyes were steady, sincere, but Rachel's words echoed in my head. He'll say anything. Don't fall for it. That night, I lay awake wondering if I was standing at the edge of something real, or walking straight into the same trap Rachel had. And then, just as I was drifting off, my phone buzzed with a new message. Not from Rachel. From an unknown number. Unknown, you don't know the full story about Malcolm. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. Alone. My blood ran cold. Who was this? And what did they mean by the truth? The unknown message haunted me all night. You don't know the full story about Malcolm. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. Alone. My rational side told me to ignore it, it could be a prank, or worse, dangerous. But curiosity clawed at me. I needed to know. The next afternoon, I followed the directions in the message and found myself at a small cafe off campus. My stomach churned as I scanned the room. Then, to my shock, Rachel slid into the chair across from me. You? I hissed. She smirked. Didn't think you'd come. But you need to hear this. Anger flared. You could have just said it straight instead of playing creepy games with anonymous numbers. She waved a hand dismissively. You wouldn't have listened otherwise. You're too blinded by him. I crossed my arms. So enlighten me. What's this big truth about Malcolm? Her expression hardened. He's not who you think he is. Last semester, he was in a study group just like ours. And guess what? He got close to another girl. Told her she was different. Told her he liked her. Same lines he's feeding you now. Then one day, he just stopped showing up. No explanation. She was devastated. Maybe it just didn't work out, I countered weakly. Rachel leaned forward. That girl was my roommate. I watched her fall apart over him. He has a pattern, Charlotte. He draws girls in, makes them believe they matter, then moves on when he gets bored. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to dismiss it as bitterness, jealousy. But another part recognized the logic in her words. Why didn't you say this before? I whispered. She sighed. Because I thought I could handle him. I thought I'd be the exception. But when I saw him look at you the way he used to look at her, I couldn't just sit back and watch you make the same mistake. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Malcolm. Malcolm, hey, can we talk tonight? There's something I want to clear up. I stared at the screen, torn in two. That evening, I met Malcolm in the library, where it had all started. The place was nearly empty, quiet except for the hum of the lights. He looked tense, running a hand through his hair when I walked in. Thanks for coming, he said. Listen. I know Rachel's been saying things. And I need you to hear my side. Then tell me, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Did you do this before? With another girl? His face froze. That single pause told me more than any denial could. Charlotte, he began slowly. Yes. I dated someone from a study group last semester. But it wasn't like Rachel says. I cared about her, but I realized too late we wanted different things. She wanted a relationship, I wasn't ready. I ended it badly. I regret that. Badly? I repeated. Or did you just disappear? He exhaled heavily. I didn't know how to handle it, so I pulled back. And yeah, I screwed up. I hurt her. But I'm not playing games with you. With you, it's different. Different. The same word Rachel said he'd used before. I stared at him, my heart warring with my head. He looked sincere, regret written all over his face. But sincerity could be rehearsed. Regret could be convenient. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me. So what do you want from me, Malcolm? Really? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I want a chance. Not just study sessions, not just hanging out. I like you, Charlotte. I want more. The words I'd secretly wanted to hear for weeks. And yet, they didn't land the way I thought they would. Rachel's warning echoed in my mind. The roommate's heartbreak. His own admission of ghosting. Maybe he meant what he said. Maybe this time he was ready. But could I risk being another girl left wondering what went wrong? I swallowed hard, my decision forming like a stone in my chest. I can't, I whispered. His brow furrowed. What do you mean? I can't be another chapter in your pattern. Maybe you've changed. Maybe you haven't. But I'm not willing to gamble my heart to find out. Silence stretched between us. For a moment, I thought he might argue. But then his shoulders slumped, and he nodded slowly. I understand, he said quietly. I turned and walked out of the library, my chest aching but strangely lighter. The next week, I still went to study group. Rachel was there, watching me carefully. When she saw Malcolm sit at the far end of the table, no longer hovering near either of us, she gave me a small, almost respectful nod. Not friendship, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. The triangle had broken, but not in the way I'd expected. And as I opened my notebook and focused on the formulas in front of me, I realized something important. I came here to survive statistics. And somewhere along the way, I'd learned how to survive something far more complicated, the messy lines between truth, lies, and the risk of falling for someone who might never stay.